Welcome to Out of the Blue B, number 109.65. I'm going to continue reading from Spirit Intercourse. I'll link it below. But if you're new to this, I'll say that this is Neo-Swedenborgianism, which is talking about the world that the NDE people are describing, and it seems to be the same world that Swedenborg was describing, except that Swedenborg was a Christian. He was raised a Christian, and he visited a Christian world. And I was not raised a Christian, and I am not speaking about a Christian world. But other than that, there are a lot of similarities. So, I'm going to read a little bit from here. I'm going to start with page 201 from the edition linked below, where he says, "Psychic science is educating men to regard the physical world as the outhouse of existence, where the human spirit is most nearly dead, being buried within matter too crude to allow full manifestation of that spirit." So, he says that right now we are in the outhouse of existence, and that our spirit cannot truly manifest itself in this world, but that in the coming worlds it can. Here, page 274, the third sphere. "The natural life of the soul, which man ought to inherit immediately after death, were he to live in more harmonious conditions with the law of his nature, the law of his being while on earth, is to be found on the third sphere. One finds there a state of life far superior to that of earth, though in some respects it is singularly similar." Here's an interesting passage, page 276. "One of the first things that strikes a visitor to this sphere is the absence of shadow, the light being of a peculiar nature, illuminating an object on all sides equally, so that light is quite as clear below a spreading tree as above." Now, this is very interesting because if you read a lot of near-death experiences, you hear this same thing. There's no shadow. And if you look at this map that I refer to on page 198, you'll see that, as I've said before, the map matches the shape, the structure, and the dimensions of the Van Allen belts. So as far as I know, I'm the first person to make this connection, that this spirit sphere, which is spoken about not just here, but in Swedenborg and in near-death experiences, is the Van Allen belts. That's the conclusion that I've been led to, and I understand it's weird and kooky and new and different, but I just have to kind of go with it, because this is what's been put on my plate, so I'm just rolling with it. But the Van Allen belts, and I'll link to this too down below, are high energy radiation areas around Earth. They were not discovered till 1958 by James Van Allen, but it appears that they were written about here in 1916 by J. Hewitt Mackenzie. So this is the miracle of Neo-Swedenborgianism. Somehow J. Hewitt Mackenzie described the structure and the dimensions of the Van Allen belts, which were not discovered for 40 years. But specifically, they are trapped solar energy. The magnetosphere around Earth, as you may know, has an iron core, and iron is magnetic, and there's a magnetosphere around Earth. The magnetosphere traps solar energy, and that's what's called the Van Allen belts. So you have trapped solar energy that you are now in this space, and so there is light everywhere. The light is not shining from above. The whole area is light, so that a tree will not have a shadow. It'll be illuminated from all directions because you are within the solar radiation. Now, this may sound disjointed and confused, but it's a completely new subject, as far as I can tell. Well, I'm going to go on now. Page 278. The intimacies of life are carried on for long years upon this plane of existence, and sometimes extend into the fourth sphere. He's talking here about the third sphere, or aka Summerland. These intimacies, however, gradually change with the development of consciousness and the human traits and earth loves as the soul evolves, giving place to a universal love which embraces all humanity. I've also talked about this before, where on the lower planes of existence there are specific religions, but as you get higher, the earth loves widen as the soul evolves, giving place to a universal love which embraces all humanity. So on the higher planes there does not seem to be any specific religion. Anyway, he's describing the third sphere now, and he's talking about this home, and he says, immediately adjoining this home lies a large park, in which stands a public building devoted to the use of all who wish to enter for study or amusement. Separate rooms are there provided for music, painting, modeling, reading, lecturing, etc. In the large entrance hall are many middle-aged men and women who meet there for an hour's quiet intercourse, while younger relatives walk in the grounds and amuse themselves as they feel disposed. Let me just say that you can amuse yourself any way you want in this place. I'll go on. These people are spending some time in leisurely recreation, but their other hours are spent in useful service. Here are to be found many who have been working on the earth plane, quite a number having just returned from laborious work on the battlefields where they have been helping those just recently passed out of the body. I'll say on that note, that's what Francesco does, another book I talk about. That's what Rebecca Springer's father does. Rebecca Springer talks about visiting her father in the spirit lands, and he has a job, and that's his job. He goes to the people who are recently deceased, and he helps them find their way. So strangely, this is what I've discovered, these books have a lot of overlap in the stories they tell and the picture they paint. Further on was established a large college where students ranging from 20 to 50 years were gathered together. These were being taught by teachers from the fourth sphere who instructed them in laws pertaining to that sphere, and also taught them some of the fundamental principles of psychology in order that they might become teachers among their companions. So there's layers of spheres, and people from the upper layers come down and teach people from the lower layers. In another college, which the author entered, advanced students were found receiving instruction from teachers from the fifth sphere. Their practice and method of teaching was very interesting, and it may be useful to briefly explain this. Here we are, page 279. Shortly after the students were seated, 7 teachers from the fifth sphere appeared instantaneously upon the platform. I'll say on this that you travel places by thinking about it, and you get somewhere immediately once you think about it. So you travel at the speed of thought, which is another idea you see in the NDE quite a lot. And so by thinking about a place, you immediately arrive there. So here, the teachers, 7 teachers from the fifth sphere appeared instantaneously upon the platform. After a brief interval, 3 descended on the right hand and 3 on the left, the 7th remaining seated. The 6 passed along the side aisles and, beginning at the back of the hall, made passes over the heads of the audience, touching from time to time the heads of certain students who sought this as a favor, and thus established magnetic cords between the class and the teacher on the platform. These passes were obviously made with the intention of linking the minds of the students with the mind of the teacher, for the 6 assistants passed their hands after they had magnetized the audience over the head of their chief and then seated themselves again, 3 on each side. When the principal began his instruction, the students seemed to be able to enter into his mind and read the thoughts clearly which he expressed in speech, and it was evident that they gathered more from the thought than the actual words by this telepathic transmission. These lectures seldom extended beyond an hour's duration, and are often considerably shorter than this, for thought is much more speedy than anything possible to men on earth. Entering a large school where children were being instructed, a marked peculiarity was noticed in the many miniature rooms arranged around a large central hall. The main hall had seating accommodations for over 1,000 children, where they were congregated for certain exercises and for singing, but each individual child had a separate room and tutor, the teachers being selected to suit the temperament of each child. A teacher was only permitted to instruct a child to whom he was attached by a bond of close affection. Elementary general instruction, very similar to what is known on earth, was given, such as reading, writing, spelling, and arithmetic, but infinite care was taken in the training of thoughts and emotions far beyond anything attempted on earth. These children are delightful to see, and nowhere are there any signs of disobedience or passion, for the rule of love sways all the actions of their teachers, and in children, passion is usually the outcome of disordered physical constitutions from which they do not here suffer. Many sports of earth are practiced in this sphere, but any form of sport hurtful to either the animal or human kingdom is naturally prohibited. Large numbers of singing birds are to be found, a special favorite being the canary, but carrion-feeding fowls are never found. Pet animals such as dogs, cats, birds, and horses, and a limited number of other pets are often to be seen. They may rise with their owners to higher spheres, but only in a few instances, as association with animals is discouraged on higher planes, and many of them gravitate after a few years to the animal sphere. Music plays an important part in the elevation of the soul, and enters not only by the ear, but plays upon every nerve of the soul, very much as a breeze plays upon the surface of man's body in physical life. Nearly every instrument known on earth is to be found, and a great variety of quite unknown and much more highly evolved instruments in addition, but these it is impossible to describe here. He says it's impossible to describe, but I would like to describe one, because there's something I do on the violin. The violin is generally played with the fingers, but I do a thing where I play with just one finger on one string. So when I do this, I am emulating what I imagine to be a heavenly instrument, which is just a one-stringed instrument, the string being about this long, from there to there, and you play everything on just one string with one finger. Santa Lucia, who's the saint of light. So I want to add, so this is something I imagined, right? When I read this passage about instruments you've never seen on Earth, I kind of imagined this instrument. And I want to say that there's this interesting idea presented both here and in Swedenborg that says that anything you can imagine is there, plus 10,000 variations of that thing that you can't even imagine. So on Earth we have this limited imagination, this limited ability to think, but when you get there, whatever you can imagine, there's far beyond it. So anything you can imagine, I imagine this one-string instrument, or you can imagine a house or a place or a thing. In this world where we're going to go, which is, as I've said, up in the Van Allen belts, it is a world of thought and mind, and anything you can think of is there. Just the fact that you can think of it proves that it's there, because our mind is a window into this world. And so what I hope to encourage is people to just think about it. What would you like to see there? What would you like to do there? And to be confident and to trust that you actually can see and do those things. Not just that, but 10,000 variations of that are more wonderful and more amazing and more extraordinary than we can even conceive at the moment. So this is Neo-Swedenborgianism. It is similar to Swedenborgianism, but without Jesus, essentially. It's not a religion. We don't pray. We don't meditate. We use our minds and think, and we imagine, and we talk, and we do our own thing, whatever that own thing might be. What else? I guess that's good for now. Thanks. See ya.